All right, today I'm going to be giving you my top 15 greatest men's 100-meter dash sprinters from the United States all time. Now, we're coming off the 2024 Paris Olympic Games where Noah Lyles just won the 100-meter gold medal, which was the first time since 2004 that an American had actually gotten the gold. Shout out to my man, Coach Rob. Go check out the video that he just dropped a couple days ago on his channel. And we sat down and kind of broke down the greatest 100-meter sprinters from the United States, right? Definitely check out that video. But as noted there, that was recorded prior to the Olympic Games, actually all the way back in April. So before the Paris Olympics, before the Olympic trials, before anything really had occurred throughout the entire outdoor season. So now that someone like Noah has actually won the Olympic gold, of course he's going to move up my list just a little bit. And I honestly don't think I was too harsh on him in that video, right? Considering his 100-meter career before this year. But shout out to you, Noah. You know I'm always supporting you regardless. But let me get into my top 15 US men's 100-meter sprinters throughout all of history. Yes, history. So, spoiler, guys like Jesse Owens, Jim Hines, they're going to be on my list. And remember, only 100 meters. So I'm not factoring in anything about the 60 or the 200, 4x1, none of that. So let's start off at number 15, where I have Walter Dix. 2008 Olympic bronze medalist and 2011 world silver medalist. Personal best of 9.88 seconds, which ranked him number 17 all time back in 2010. So nothing too crazy for Walter Dix, but he's one of my personal favorite athletes of all time. Next up at number 14, Dennis Mitchell, three-time global bronze medalist, having won Olympic bronze in 92, along with double world bronze in 91 and 1993. He also has a personal best of 9.91, which was the third fastest time in history back in 1991. Now, Dennis does seem to get a bit of flack, but considering how fast he ran back in the early 90s and made the podium at 3 consecutive global championships in a very competitive era, listen, he definitely deserves a mention on this list. And honestly, he's a great person as well. So shout out to you, Dennis Mitchell. Up to number 13, Leroy Burrell, one of the all-time greats also from the 90s, having won a world silver medal in 91, but also broke the world record on 2 occasions. Once in 1991 with a 9.90, and then again in 1994 with a 9.85, which actually ended Carl Lewis's, streak of breaking 100-meter world records. So because of Leroy's records, that gave him the edge for me over Dennis despite not having that Olympic medal. Which brings me to number 12, where I have Calvin Smith. Literally one of the best in history back in the 1980s. Olympic bronze medal back in 1984 and world silver medalist in 1983. But those medals are backed up by the 100-meter world record of 9.93 seconds back in 1983, breaking what was then a long-standing 14-year-old world record at the time. I gave him the edge over Burrell because he at least has that one Olympic medal and again, broke that long-standing world record. But speaking of records, at number 11, Bob Hayes, literally a legend, not only on the track, but also on the football field. He was the Olympic gold medalist back in 1964 and broke the world record with a time of 10.06 seconds. But it's important to note that though Hayes' record held as 10.06, he actually officially was recorded with a hand time of 9.9 seconds. So technically, Bob Hayes was the first man to break the 10-second barrier, but we'll get to that official guy just a little bit later. Let's move into this top 10, but let me talk about this a little bit. I do want to highlight that comparing these athletes from these different eras is always going to be a challenge. We're talking about athletes competing on different track surfaces, better spike technology, right? Improved training and recovery methods, much better nutrition and things like that. It makes it very hard to say what could happen since many of these athletes ran in completely different generations. Think about this. Do you know what Jesse Owens was doing back in the 1930s? This man was taking week-long boat rides to the Olympic Games in Europe to run in leather shoes on dirt tracks without proper training as an unpaid black athlete during a racist time period. Imagine he was competing today, taking 6-hour flights to Europe to run in Nike Max Flies with carbon fiber plates, right, on a Mondo all-weather surface, proper training programs. Who knows what Jesse Owens would have done? And then on top of that, for some more context, prior to the 1980s, the World Championships didn't even exist, right? Guys like Jesse Owens, Bob Hayes, Jim Hines, they never had the opportunity to win as many medals as these current athletes do now. Also, I have to acknowledge, we all have some recency bias. It's easy for us to look at a performance now and say that was crazy, right? Or that was a world record or second best all time and all that, right? But 30, 50, 70 years ago, people looked at certain performances back then with just as much awe as the times that we did now. So all that, just keep that in context, keep that in mind as we move forward with my top 10. Coming in at number 10, I have Christian Coleman. Now, I think earlier this year, he was a bit higher on my list, but when comparing his entire career, I unfortunately couldn't put him as high at the end of this year now. 2019 World Gold, 2017 World Silver, and personal best of 9.76 seconds, making him number 6 all time in the event. But Christian's lack of an Olympic medal keeps him just a bit farther down the list, as everyone that I'm about to name above him has stood on the podium at the Olympic Games. Speaking of the Olympics, let's go all the way back to the 1930s for my number 9 with Ralph Metcalfe. Again, comparing these different eras is very hard, and many of you may not even know who Ralph Metcalfe is, but he was literally one of the greatest athletes of his generation. 2-time Olympic medalist in 1932 and 1936. 1932, he missed the gold medal by literally a hair, and I actually think under the current rules of the torso crossing the line first, Ralph would have been the Olympic champion. On the other hand, 1936, he finished second place to the legendary Jesse Owens. But Ralph also set the 100-meter world record on 3 occasions between 1931 and 1934, running 10.3 seconds each time. And if I'm being technical, I probably should have Ralph Metcalfe just a bit higher, but I do think this is maybe where recency bias might be creeping in, because think about it. If an athlete today won 2 Olympic medals and broke the world record on 3 occasions, y'all be going crazy. But let's move up to number 8, where this might hurt a few people, but here I have Tyson Gay. Now listen, hear me out. Tyson Gay, 2007 World Championship gold medalist in the 100, World Championship silver medalist in 2009, behind Usain Bolt's legendary world record, 9.69 personal best, which currently ranks him as number 2 all time and the current American record. But unfortunately, that's where the major accolades stop. Tyson Gay is literally one of my favorite athletes of all time, but when looking at his full body of work, it just isn't as complete as you would expect. Unfortunately, no Olympic medals, and yes, though he does have the American record and number 2 performance all time, I can't rate the times as high as the medals. Like I noted earlier, we're going to have some recency bias when it comes to athletes and their accomplishments and specifically their times, right? I was just talking about Ralph Metcalfe, who set the world record on 3 occasions. None of us watching were alive back then to witness how amazing those world records were. And honestly, I know that many people will say that, right, Tyson would have been dominating if it wasn't for Usain Bolt, right? Sure, maybe, but it's unfortunately just a hypothetical. We have to go based off the information that we have now. I could also say that Ralph Metcalfe would have been dominating if Jesse Owens wasn't there, but again, we have to go with what actually happened. It's impossible to not acknowledge what Tyson Gay has done for the 100-meter dash in the United States, but I still have him at my number 8 all time. Let's go up to that number 7 though. Here's where I'm bringing in Fred Kerley. Shout out to Fred Kerley, switching events from the 400 down to the 100 meters and consistently getting on that podium, right? Olympic silver medalist in 2021, world gold in 2022, and Olympic bronze in 2024. Personal best of 9.76 makes him equal number 6 all time. Because he's been able to consistently make these teams and get onto the podium by literally whatever means necessary, winning 3 medals in a very competitive era in global 100-meter sprinting, Fred comes in at my number 7. Now, up to number 6, and this is where I have Noah Lyles. So earlier in the year, I don't even think I would have had Noah probably in my top 10 all time. Again, check out the conversation that me and Coach Rob just had on his channel. But with Noah's Olympic gold medal this year, along with the World Championship gold medal from last year, that completely shot him up the list for me. Add to that, his 9.79 makes him number 12 all time. Sure, he's lacking a bit when it comes to that all time mark, but it's hard to deny the double golds at this point. And keep note, so far through this list, no other athlete I've mentioned has won 2 gold medals in the 100-meter dash until I got to Noah. But that's of course going to change very, very soon. Now, let's get into this top 5. And honestly, I actually think there's a pretty big gap between 6 and then up to number 5. Just my personal opinion. These guys above have really broken barriers, made history, collected accolades. It's simply just too hard to ignore what they have done. At number 5, this is pretty hard. It was really hard. I was torn between number 4 and 5, but this is where I'm putting Jesse Owens at number 5. This was tough, but I ultimately came down with this as I'm only looking at their 100-meter careers and not any other events. 1936 Olympic gold and set the 100-meter world record on 3 occasions. One of them was actually the 100-yard world record. Personal best of 10.2 seconds, which was the world record back in 1936, and he set the 100-yard world record in 1935. Note that there were no world championships in 1935, so you could only imagine what Jesse would have done during that year. Now, Remember, this is only 100-meter accolades, so I couldn't give Jesse the extra points for his legendary 45 minutes setting the world records in 1935 or the 4 gold medals he won at the 1936 Olympics. But that doesn't take anything away from the legend that Jesse Owens was almost a full century ago. But I had to make the tough decision of putting Jim Hines ahead at number 4. Listen, Jim Hines literally broke a barrier that will never be broken again in track and field. Olympic gold medal in 1968, 2-time world record in the 100-meter dash, the latter of which was a world record time of 9.95 seconds. The first time in history any man officially broke the 10-second barrier with fully automatic timing. Remember, I noted Bob Hayes did it hand-timed back in 1964. This was legendary, right? Everyone had been racing to take down that barrier, but Jim Hines was the one to do it first. And not only that, his world record of 9.95 lasted for over 14 years from 1968 to 1983. Take a guess at who else held a 100-meter world record for that long. Yep, Usain Bolt. He's the only person, and he just surpassed that this year in 2024, hitting the 15-year mark. This is why I say that we have a lot of recency bias. Think about the years and years passing by with no one being able to take down Jim Hines' world record mark. That is the definition of historical, and doing it on the way to winning an Olympic gold in a 100-meter dash, that's why I have him at number 4 all time. But up to the top 3, you may already be able to guess, but I have Justin Gatlin at number 3. Justin, he's a definition of longevity in the sport. Olympic gold in 2004, bronze in 2012, and silver in 2016, world gold in 2005, and gold again in 2017, along with 3 world silvers in 2013, 15, and 2019. That's literally a 15-year gap between his first and last medal. Now, of course, he did serve that drug ban from 2006 to 2010, but once he was back on the track, he immediately went on to have the success and longevity that we know today. Personal best of 9.74, which makes him number 5 all-time in history, and with those accolades, it's just hard for me to not have Justin in the top 3. But at number 2, Maurice Greene. And I'll be honest, I can probably argue Justin over Maurice if I really wanted to, but Maurice has almost a perfect career. Olympic champion in 2000, along with a bronze medal in 2004, 3-time world champion in 97, 99, and 2001, personal best of 9.79, which was the world record, and became the first man to break the 9.8 second barrier. And what's crazy is that 2001 gold medal in Edmonton arguably could have been a world record as well had Maurice not pulled up towards the end of that race, still won that gold medal. Now, though Maurice didn't have as much longevity as Gatlin, he has the world record and the consecutive gold medals, right? Just think about that for a second. Maurice won every single gold medal possible from 1997 to 2001. That is absolutely unheard of outside of Usain Bolt, and then, of course, the guy that we have at number 1. You know who it is. Carl Lewis is the greatest American 100-meter sprinter of all time. And career-wise, he honestly is only second to Usain Bolt when talking about global 100-meter sprinters. Look at these accolades. 2-time Olympic champion in 1984 and 1988. 3-time world champion in 1983, 1987, and 1991. Back in an era where the world championships was every 4 years. So you're talking about winning every possible 100-meter gold medal from 1983 to 1991. That is 9 consecutive years of dominance. Finally, 4-time world record holder in the 100-meter dash. 9.93 in 1987, and then again in 1988, 9.92 in 1988, and then 9.86 seconds in 1991, becoming the first man to break the 9.9 second barrier. Again, Olympic medals, world records. Carl Lewis's career was literally impeccable, which is why I have him at my number 1 spot. But again, I thought this would be fun, just coming off the conversation that me and Coach Rob had a couple months back. Definitely, again, check that out on Coach Rob's channel. And as always, I always say it, this is just my opinion. Go in the comments, give me your top 5, top 10, top 15, right? Give me all those names if you'd like. There's so many guys in the conversation that many of us will have different looking lists, and I encourage you to share them. So let me know what you think. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.